All right, awesome. What's popping, everybody? Welcome back to the 2026 FNB App Academy. I am Karabo Mohol. I'm always thrilled to be part of the App Academy. By now, you guys should be halfway through the Python Masterclass, right? I hope it is going well and you guys are learning some new coding skills, right? So remember, at the end of the Masterclass, there will be an assessment. And from this assessment, the top 50,000 learners will be invited to participate in the UJ Johannesburg Business School curriculum. All right, so that doesn't mean the App Academy is over for those that don't qualify, because after the Masterclass, there will be an opportunity for you guys to participate in a prestigious learning to earning platform from Accenture. All right, so keep at it, keep learning, keep growing, and I promise you that this platform can change your life. You don't believe me? All right, so let's take a look at a video of one of our past graduates who has completed the App Academy, and they can speak about how this particular platform has changed their life.
My name is Felicia Sitole. I'm from Katlehong. I'm 24 years of age, and I'm here because of the FNB Academy. I love technology, I'm passionate about technology and also coding, so that's why I joined the FNB Academy. From the start, I loved creating things, so I didn't know what was it, but I knew that I had the passion to create something from scratch. It's either I'm creating it from scratch or I'm just improving it. I was in varsity in UP, but I couldn't finish due to sickness, where I don't know what I was doing with my life. It's just everything was paused. Then I'm like, okay, I do have ideas of what things that I want to do and everything, but I don't know how to start or to go about. After some few weeks, I saw the advertisement of FNB Academy. That time I think I was learning HTML and CSS. I'm still in the basics. I'm confused. The concepts are very challenging. I don't understand other things. But then with the FNB, everything made it was very smooth. The concepts and everything, I could understand it and everything. I learned to code, first of all. I was having difficulties with JavaScript, but with FNB Academy, it made it simple, very simple. The challenge that I had was to break into tech. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, and I'm having difficulties until the FNB Academy. That's where I break into tech. And after that, I had a lot of opportunities because I got the scholarship. After that, I completed the scholarship, and then that's where I got the learnership. The FNB Academy is a plug for young people because it changes your mindset both personally and professionally, and also open doors for you, for opportunities, as it opened doors for me. I'm a content creator, but I didn't know which content I want to do. But now I think I know which content I want to do. I want to do a tech content, and also I received a message from the FNB, so they will be working with me. Hopefully, I don't know how, but then I hope it's going to be a best thing because it's an opportunity for me. After finishing the FNB Academy, I went to the hackathon with the other friends of mine. We were creating an app which is called Sanctuary. I hope we're going to get more opportunities to explain about it, because Sanctuary is a platform where we connect customers and also trusted workers, and it's also creating job opportunities. So we pray that it's going to open doors. We get funding or maybe sponsorship for our app, because now it's still in the testing phase. We would like to release it to people and starting using it. And the other thing that I want to say, I won the setup competition, so I received the laptop and the desktop and the table from the FNB Academy. It really helped me a lot because now I have the best resources to code and continue learning.
All right, awesome stuff. Great feedback right there on the importance of this particular platform. All right, so as I mentioned, after the Python Masterclass, right, there will be an assessment, and then there will be a split where the top 50,000 learners will be invited to participate in a prestigious Johannesburg Business School curriculum course. All right, so this course will consist of 5 weeks of digital skills and entrepreneurship training, and as well as another 5 weeks of app development and coding. For everyone else, you guys will be invited to participate in a prestigious Accenture learning to earning platform. You guys will receive information about that soon, so please do keep a lookout for updates. All right, so coming up, we have an extraordinary individual, Simphiwe Radebe, who will be giving us an in-depth overview of the Python Masterclass, as well as how to navigate the learner management system. Simphiwe, over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Simphiwe Radebe. Today I'll be taking you guys through the FNB App Academy Python Masterclass Learner Management System. Let's get started. So, once you put in your username and email address, which is what you used to sign up for the App Academy, you will be allowed to sign into the learner management system. Once you sign in, you'll be greeted by this home screen and you will see the enrolled courses you are currently in. If you are not enrolled, you can click on enrolled courses and you'll be able to enroll into the App Academy Python Coding Masterclass. But now most people should be enrolled by now, so let's continue from there. You will see continue learning and you can click on resume. Once you resume, you're gonna see all the units on the left hand side of your screen. These are all the units that you need to complete for you to be able to move on to the next part of the academy. You've got units 0 to 6 and then a summative assessment on all those units. It's very critical that you actually try and understand what you are learning within all the units so that the summative assessment is easier for you to do. Now, the introduction just gives you a course outline of what this Python masterclass will be teaching you, and you'll just at least understand what you'll be learning with Python. So you've got Unit 1, which is Introduction to Python, Unit 2, which is your manipulating of strings, Unit 3, which is manipulating numbers, then Unit 4, that's where now the logic and data structures start happening, your storage and access, Unit 5 would be selection of tasks, and Unit 6 will be repeating tasks. So just go onto the introduction course outline, read up on this, and you can complete this section. So one thing you should note is once you have finished reading, you need to mark whatever unit or whatever reading you are doing as completed, or else you won't be able to track your progress. So once you are done with that, you'll just introduce yourself in the comments. You can put whatever you want, but yeah, there's no need per se. Okay. Now we'll get started with setting up our Python environment. This is the same process for both Mac, Linux, and Windows. So processes are similar. I'll be using a Mac OS, but it would be the same on a Windows machine. Now, what you need to do is, the first thing we have to do is we need to get Python. Python is the programming language we'll be using to learn and run our programs. So to do that, you'll go onto python.org. I'll just do it again, python.org. And that will take you on to this screen. This screen will show you the latest version of Python available for you to download. So we are now on Python 3.14.6. This is for Mac OS. If you've got Windows, it will show you it's for Windows, Linux, etc. They will be the same. So you'll just click on the download button and that will go onto your downloads tab. So Python will be downloaded. Then one more thing we need to get is VS Code. VS Code is an editor that we'll be using, or an IDE that we'll be using to write our code. So normally before then we used to write code on your notepad and save the file then run it, but we've got editors that help us with syntax highlighting, linting, etc. for you to be able to see where you're going wrong while you're writing your code. So that's a much easier way for you to learn how to write code. So VS Code is an open source editor, so you can just download that. The button here, download for macOS, would show as Windows, Linux, macOS, whatever system you're using, that's what you'll see. So download for macOS. The download will take a bit, it's just about 300 megabytes, and you should be good to go. Now, let's start with installing Python. You'll go to the downloaded file that you got and open it. So once you open the file, it will show us the Python installer window. So this will just show you instructions on how to install. What you can do is just continue, read up on a few things, but you can continue and agree to the license and terms. So it will tell you how much space it's going to take on your machine, so just to ensure you do have enough storage so that you don't come into issues of it not installing correctly. Then we'll click on install and install the software. So this now, what it does is basically unpacks the entire Python, puts it on our machine so that we can start running Python scripts on our machine. And just like that, Python is installed. So it's just verifying and we are done. Okay, now we need to install our IDE, right? So our IDE, like I said, it's our code editor or our integrated development environment. That's where we start writing our code. So we already downloaded it, so we can now open the file and install the IDE. On Mac, all you have to do is just drag into applications folder. On Windows, it will take you through an installer window as well, same as with the Python, which will allow you to install onto your Windows machine. So that would be the same process between both. Okay, now we have installed Python and we have installed VS Code. What we need to do now is open our VS Code so we can start writing our code. Cool. Now we're opening up VS Code, and VS Code again is the editor or code editor we'll be using. When you open up VS Code, this is what you'll be greeted with. You do not have to sign in. You can continue without signing in. If you want to sign in, you can. Normally signing in with GitHub and you've got access to GitHub Copilot, that's how it will work together there, but there's no need. You can click on continue without signing in. Then you can choose a theme. For this, I'll just choose a light theme so you guys are able to see, and we'll continue. So this is just telling you about AI agents. We'll get into that later on. For now, you just need to understand how to use the IDE and get started with that. Cool. Now you can close it up, and this is your VS Code, your terminal. This is basically your workspace. This is where you'll be working all the time. Now, what we have to do is our VS Code doesn't know where our Python is. If we had to write a Python script right now, it will not know how to run it. So we need to install Python or connect Python onto the VS Code editor, right? What you'll do is on your left-hand side, you will see these icons here. The icon you're looking for is for the extensions, which is 4 blocks. You'll click on that, and then we want to search for Python. So we'll search for Python, and we'll install the Python extension by Microsoft. So this is the one with the most downloads, and you can just click on it and click on install. So what that will do, it will now just install at least support and language support on our VS Code for us to be able to work with Python in our VS Code editor. That will take a few seconds just to download, and then we can get started with that. All right, once it's downloaded, what you need to do is just open your folder, and this is just to help you get your Python started. So it's just giving you a few steps for you to create a Python file, get it onto a folder, onto a working environment, and then you can have all your files in one location. So you'll click on Open Project Folder, and then since you do not have a folder yet, you can create a new folder called FNB App Academy, which will have all your Python files for the Academy. FNB App Academy. And click on Create. That will just create a folder, and then you can click on Open, which will now open the folder in our VS Code editor. So what that does is whatever files we create will get saved directly into that folder so that we are putting all our stuff in one basket, basically. So we just opened a folder, which is our bucket for where we'll be putting all our Python files. Now, for you to get started, what we want to do is we want to create a new file. So you can click on New File, and let's just call it hello.py. Now, the reason we put .py, it's a file extension for Python files. So if you did not put .py, the system or the code editor will not understand what file you are trying to write, and it will save it as a default text file. So we do a Python file, and then you'll get a pop-up to save it in your FNB App Academy directory, which is where we're going to keep all our code. So once we've created our file, what we want to do is we just want to print something in our IDE or in our terminal for us to see how Python actually works. So we've got a function called print, which is what we'll use to print into our terminal. It's within the word print. So we're going to print hello from the FNB App Academy. So for you to print, you need to put the function print, which is the word I wrote there, and quotations. Quotations is for you to specify that what you're printing is a string. So we're going to put hello from the FNB App Academy. Okay, now we've written our print statement, and we need to run this. How we run this is we need to open up our terminal. So you can open up your terminal on the VS Code. Just trust so this would come up if you have not trusted the folders at all. So this is just for the IDE to allow you to actually write terminal processes and execute code within that folder. So you need to make sure you trust the folder for you to be able to do that. Now, you'll see the terminal will pop up at the bottom. All we have to do to run this file is we can run Python, and then we say hello.py. Now, one thing before we run is we need to always make sure the file gets saved, because if we ran this without saving it, the file either doesn't exist or the code is not saved. So to do that, you can do Command S or Control S on a Windows. If not, you can go to your file and click on Save, which will be an option there. One thing you can also do is, if you don't like saving a lot, you can go on File and click on Autosave, so that every time you make code changes, it will save for you without having to save again. So I'll have autosave enabled. Now we write Python hello.py to start running the file. When we click enter, it says Python is not found. So that's good, because now we get to see some issues other people might be facing as well. So the reason it says Python or the command is not found is because the terminal is not finding it within our path, right? So normally it's Python 3 for the latest Python, which is what will allow it to run. And it ran. So let's unpack why this might have not worked. So we wrote Python hello.py, command was not found. Python 3 has changed their setup or startup command to Python 3 instead of just Python. So the path, when we are running it in our IDE or in our terminal, is looking for Python 3 and not Python. Hence the command is not found. So those are some steps you can actually just troubleshoot when you are coming with issues when trying to run your files. So this is just running from the terminal, and we can see the text we wrote called hello from the FNB App Academy. Now that is one way to run it. Another way to run it is within the button at the top right corner, which is the play button, which allows you to run the files as well. So if you click on the button, it will run the file. So you'll see down here in the terminal, it shows you what it wrote to run the file. So it just went to go find the Python, like we wrote Python 3, and then it found the file and it ran that as a command, which outputted the same thing. So just like that, we literally have Python set up and are ready to go. That's it for running Python, and we can actually get started in the units of the LMS system to now unpack all the different topics within Python. Now, if we go back to the Academy website or the LMS system, we just did Unit 0, which was setting up your Python environment, right? So don't forget to mark it as completed. You can watch the video and then you mark it as completed, then you're done with that unit. Now the next part is for us to do Unit 1, which is Introduction into Python, Strings, and Numbers. We already basically did this by actually printing something, so you've already done part of our Unit 1 lesson. Okay, so Unit 1 lesson is Python, Strings, and Numbers, and I'll just go through what we have to do here. So you'll watch the lesson video if you need to get a much deeper understanding, and then don't forget to go into your reading materials as well to just understand more. Okay, let's go back to our IDE, and now we're going to create a new file so we can get started with our Unit 1. To create a new file, what you can do is you can come onto the left-hand side and you'll see the icon next to FNB App Academy called New File. If you do not see that, you can go onto your settings or your menu and you can click on New File from there as well. Once we click on New File, this pop-up will come up here and we can just name this Unit 1.py because we are creating a Python file. Then create the file and you'll have the file open. Now we get started with Unit 1, which is just strings, numbers. So first thing we'll do is we can show you what a comment is. This is a comment. Okay, I put a hashtag and you might be asking yourself why. Hashtag is to let the system know when it runs this file, do not ever run this, do not look at this. This is basically human readable notes for whoever runs or looks at the file as well to understand whatever code comes next, what it does. Normally, we like writing our code to be self-explanatory, but in some instances, we need to write comments for you to be able to explain certain parts of the code. So we'll just write that's a comment and then we'll print again. All right, so print again is a function. Print is a function which does something, right? Again, a function is a block of code which does something. So we'll get deeper into that, but just know print is a Python function which will print something into your terminal. So we want to print again, so we can just say App Academy 2026, FNB App Academy 2026. And that will print that in our terminal, just like we did in the hello.py, right? So that is basically printing. You print a string. So you can print a number, you can print a variable, a string, whatever you want to print. So that's a print statement. What we want to now get into is just for you to understand variables. Like I just said, I'm sure you just heard variables and asking yourself what that is. So a variable basically is like a container, right? You have a name and you want to assign it to something so that you can use it again. So my name is Simpiwe, and if I had to print my name in different places in the code, I need to be able to have a specific unique identifier to run that name in different parts of the code without having to type in the name again. So that's what a variable is. What we'll put here is name, and we'll put my name as Simpiwe, right? Now basically you're telling Python that, okay, whenever in this code I write name, I want you to replace it with Simpiwe. That's as simple as it gets. So whenever you say print name, it's gonna check, okay, name is equal to Simpiwe, so we're printing Simpiwe. That's what the variable is. So you can make a variable and then assign it to whatever you want. You can assign it to numbers, you can assign it to text, whatever. So this is just us doing strings, and then we'll just add my age as well. So my age will also be in a container, and I'm currently 23. All right, so we have my name and my age, and then now we want to print this, right? So instead of us writing print Simpiwe is 23, you see now you had to manually type that. Imagine you had more variables you needed to print out or use within your functions. Now, so I had to put my name, print name plus is plus age, right? Now we have to keep adding or concatenating our string, which isn't the most ideal thing for us to do, right? So we've got an easier method for us to actually do this without having to keep putting plus. So I'm gonna do the same print statement but using f strings. So f strings, f strings basically is a way for you to put all your code within, or all your strings in one string without having to concatenate them. Concatenation is adding strings together. That's what it is. So we're gonna print and we're gonna put an f. So that's how we say f string. And then we're gonna put double quotations and we can say name. Name is age, right? So name is age basically is us saying name Simpiwe is 23. So we just did one sentence, we didn't add pluses. That's an easier way for us to do it, and now we can print. So what we will do is we will run our file. Again, you've got the top right, which is the plus button, or you can go in your terminal and do Python and then put the name of the file. So obviously now our file has changed. It's no longer hello.py, it's now unit1.py. So you need to put unit1.py. So we'll just run, and there we go. Now it gave us an issue, right? Which is good. Again, I want you guys to see that. Okay, so the first print statement says FNB App Academy, which is line number 2, which is correct. The second one is Simpiwe is 23, which is line number 7, which is correct, right? And then now we got an error when we tried to print the f string. So f string and number 9. So it says, when you look at the error, so errors are very explanatory, so it helps you understand what could be the issue. So if you look at the error, it says type error, can only concatenate string and not int to string. So what does that mean? We're trying to concatenate a string and an integer. Now it's telling you that you can't do it. You need to concatenate strings together. So how do we now change this age into a string, right? We need to be able to change age into string. So to do that, we can wrap age in string. So str is a function that changes integers to strings. And what that will do is it will take age and then make it a string so that you are able to concatenate. And when you run it again, it works. So if you see down there, we've got all the functions or all the print statements that we put down there. So we've got simpUS 23, simpUS 23, simpUS 23, which is all three of them. This is three different ways to print the same thing, but you can see which one is more efficient, which one is more easier. If you look at line number 11, we didn't have to make age into a string. It actually worked without us having to tell it that you are now a string. That's what fstring does. It will change everything and make the entire type of that sentence a string. So that's basically that. One more thing is, if you check this one, line number 9, it has simpWhere is without a space. That's because, again, we're concatenating strings, and strings are as is. It does not change. It does not add spaces for you. So you need to add a space before your word, or you need to physically add a string here or a space so that it actually spaces out the is. If we run that again, it should be fine. But again, you see that is more work than actually just using an F string. That's the easiest way to unpack your F strings and printing. So that's just strings and integers. That's the easiest way to explain that. What I want to now do is just go deeper into unit number 2. That was just unit 1. That was your strings and integers. So now we'll go into unit number 2 to unpack your manipulating of strings. So that's it for unit 1. What you'll do is, once you're done understanding and reading, you need to go again into the LMS system and start doing the tasks as well. You know, you need to do the challenges, try to understand what you actually worked on, right? So here we can try this challenge. This challenge asks a user, we need to ask the user for their name, then ask them for the name of the artist they want to see. Then we need to now give out something, basically output something. So we need to say, okay, hey, the name, your tickets to see are booked successfully. Now, how do we do that? We need to now unpack this deeper. Ask user for their name. What does that mean? We need to ask the user. Now we need to get input from the user. The user needs to tell us something, because that's the only way we can ask them, right? And how do we do that? So let's add a comment here. We'll just say challenge 1. Now, how do we ask a user? Python has its own function called input. Input is what you are asking for. So when you say input, the terminal will expect an input from the user. That's the function. So we'll write name. We can say username. So the reason I say username is because we're trying to assign it to a variable, just so that we can have it in a container, like I showed within the first parts of it. We'll put username and say input, and then we can ask for the name. Please enter your name. Right? Now that will ask or prompt the user to enter their name. Then when we go back, we have to ask them for the name of the band or artist they want to see. So which artist do they want to see? So that's the next part. We need to say artist name. That's input, and then we can say please enter the name of the band or artist you want to see. Perfect. Now we've stored these two in a variable. Now you might be asking, why did I not just say input, and why did I assign the input to the variable? The reason I assigned the input to the variable is because when the user inputs their variable or inputs their name, we want to store that name. We don't want it to get lost in the code. So we want to store that name in username, so that when we now print, we can take username and print it in that statement, right? So like I said, the variable is a container. You want to store it there so that you can use it again. That's what we want to do now. So it asked us to, okay, so we did number 1, we did number 2. Now it wants us to do number 3. And it wants us to use a F string. So we already learned F string. Here's line number 11, how F string works. So you can look at this exact sentence and see exactly where you need to replace the variables and how it needs to be an F string. So we could just copy this, because you don't have to type it again. We could just copy that entire thing, and then we can print, put your quotation marks. Do not forget quotation marks, because the moment you do not add quotation marks, print does not see it as a string. So quotation marks are very important to make sure everything or all the entire sentence is a string. So most errors also come like that, where you forget your quotation marks and then it starts saying hey is not a function or something like that. So we will paste that. That's the exact message they want us to show, right? So it says hey name, your tickets to see artist are booked. Now this itself does not answer or finish the challenge, right? What it does is you still need to do something, right? And again, if we just had to say username here, user underscore name in our curly braces, it's gonna give us an error. Why does it do that? We forgot to put the F string. So we need to make sure that Python knows that this is a F string, right? So the moment we put the F, the error goes. So what we're doing is we're replacing where we want to have that custom name with our variable. So we put hey username, your tickets to see, then now we'll just say artist name. Artist name, us are booked successfully. So just for this, I will just comment this out so we can only run this part of the challenge. To comment out, you can do command / or control /, which will, you just highlight and comment out the entire code. What that does is so that when you run the code, you do not add the other code. Yeah, so it does not execute the code. So now challenge 1, we've got our username, we've got our artist name, and we have our print statement. So it says we need to print that personalized confirmation message. So let's run the code and see what happens. So we click on run, and then we can see it says, please enter your name. My name is Simpiwe. Then it will ask us, please enter the name of the band or artist you want to see. We want to see Nasty C. Enter. Then it says, hey Simpiwe, your tickets to see Nasty C are booked successfully. Just like that, the task is done. That's how you understand the challenge, and then you mark it as complete. Just to recap, we've got a username, which is our variable. You assign a variable to whatever you want to be used throughout your code. So if I had to use username again, I could go somewhere else and still use it again without having to type the name. So variables are so important in instances like this where you do not know what variable you are going to be displaying. This is a user input or something coming from the database. You add a variable so that once you get that value, you are able to use it within your code. So we'll just say hi username. Hi username. And then we've used it again. So my username Simpiwe, STC, yeah. And then you can just keep reusing it. So that's the idea for variables. It stores the value and you can use it again and again. That's it for Unit 1. Once you are done with the entire Unit 1, please ensure to try the quiz. It should be very straightforward. You just do the quiz and then you'll be good. You do the quiz and then you move on to the next lesson. So once you're done with all the resources, you mark them as completed and you do the quiz. So to go through the quiz, I will not do the quiz with you. That's something for you to try and understand and get that done on yourself. It's basically testing yourself. Remember, you're trying to get yourself to understand Python. So you don't want to now copy and look at how things are done. This is just for you to understand how to do it. So when you click on the quiz, it will tell you how many questions you've got, the marks, and the passing grade. So you can try it again and again until you keep getting it. Just keep trying. Go back to your notes, go back to the resources, try and see what you are not getting right until you get it right and get 100% on the quiz. So that's the quiz. Then we can move on to the next unit. So you need to finish all quizzes for you to do your summative assessment. So let's just keep that in mind. Now, Unit 2, string manipulation in formatting, right? We basically did this already, but we'll go through it again. Now, we're done with Unit 1. We want to do Unit 2 now. Let's create another new file, and we'll call that Unit 2. So we'll click on New File, and then we can say unit2.py. Enter. That will open up the code right there. Right? Okay, now we're on Unit 2. So we could just say, have a variable name again, Simpiwe, and what do I want to achieve after the App Academy? So we add that as a goal. I want to be full stack. Okay, we've just assigned variables, and I want to show you guys how we can play around with all these variables, right? Okay, so with these variables, again, I was showing you how to do the concatenation as well as the F strings. So there's a way we can just add, we'll just recap. If you want to print this in a sentence, we could just say print F string, and we just say hello name, and then my future is to be a goal. Straightforward, that's it. That's your manipulation of strings, but this is your joining and formatting. So you're just joining strings together and formatting it into something else. If you check down there, we printed our statement. Then we'll move on to the next part. Next part will be the string methods. Now, what are string methods? String methods is basically functions that you can use to manipulate your strings. So you can have something to go into uppercase, lowercase, to strip a few things, meaning remove some characters from a string. There's a lot of functions or methods that you can use to manipulate strings. So we'll go into that now. So let's have something called message. We'll call message FNB App Academy. And then I do not add any capital letters, so everything is lowercase, right? And then what I'll also do is I'll add some spaces in front and behind. So we're just adding some spacing just so you can understand how to manipulate the strings, right? Okay, that's our message. Now let's print. The first one we're going to go through is called dot upper. So let's put a comment there, dot upper. Now upper should try to explain what it could do. Upper meaning go up, so it means take something higher, or yeah, upper. So what this basically specifically does, I was just trying to get you to understand it. What it actually does, upper will do uppercase, right? So it will change everything in the string, or everything you are adding within the string, to be uppercase. So what you could do is we could say message dot upper. Perfect. So now message is a variable of a string, right? Now you're asking, I'm sure you might be asking, why can we just add dot upper to message? Message is a string. String in Python has multiple methods. Like we said, string methods. So because it's type of string, you can assign or call specific methods for strings. So message is a string and dot upper is a function of the string. Whether it be your variable, but the moment it's a type of string, you can call the functions that are tied to strings. So we've got message.upper. Then if we print, if we look down, okay, let's just clear and call it again. If we print, we'll see FNB App Academy is all in caps. But if you go back to line number 6, you'll see that we had everything as lowercase. So this is for instances where you require something on your screen to show as uppercase. So whether the user adds lowercase, they forget to make something uppercase, you just want everything to show as uppercase, you use dot upper to ensure that your string will always be uppercase. That's what dot upper does. Now we've got another one. We'll call this one dot title. So what dot title does is, in a title, your first word, the first letter is capitalized and each word is capitalized. So this function will take your string, and the moment there's more, it will capitalize the first letter of each word in the string. Remember, the string is everything. It may be a sentence, it may be 2 words, 5 words, but the moment it's encompassed in quotation marks, it's its own string, right? So we want to capitalize each and every first letter of each word in the string. So we'll print and we'll put message dot title. So message dot title, and that will now do that. So if we run the code, we'll look down there and we'll see FNB App Academy. the F in FNB is now capitalized, the A in app is now capitalized, the A in academy is now capitalized. That's exactly what the function does. Don't forget to come back and see how the string was at first. It was just FNB app academy, all lowercase. That's exactly what it does there. Okay, then we've got another function or string method called .strip. So this one is like scissors. Basically, it cuts off the spaces in your string. That's the reason I added spaces in the message, right? So .strip is so that when you have a form and you know some people might accidentally add spaces, autofill also adds spaces, you want to make sure that you .strip or you strip all the loose spaces in your string so that you've got one variable, which is a nicely formatted string. You'll put .strip. So we'll do Python print message .strip. Now, if you look again at line number 6, line number 6 has spaces in the front and in the back. When we run the code again, you will check here, the spaces are gone. So the other two still have spaces, but the third print does not have spaces anymore because we've stripped the spaces away. That's .strip. And then we've got another one called replace, .replace. Now, .replace basically, it's in the word, it replaces, right? So you'll have your string and you want to replace a certain word or string in that string with something else. So we could say print, and then we say message dot replace. So message dot replace takes two parameters. So most functions don't take parameters, others do. If you hover over it, you will see there, it will say def replace, and then it says old, new. Those are the two parameters it takes, meaning old is what's currently in the string and new is what you are replacing it with. So old would be, we want to remove the word FNB. You'll have to take it as is because FNB is lowercase, so it needs to find it as lowercase as is. So FNB, and then we put a comma for the second parameter. We want to replace it with a capital FNB, right? So we'll put FNB capitalized. And then once we run that, what it should do is it should replace FNB with capitalized FNB. So if we run it, we'll see down there, it actually made FNB capitalized and App Academy stays the same because we didn't do anything to that string. That's exactly what replace does. And then one more that I'll show you would be length. So we've got hashtag len. So len is a function, right? So len basically takes a string. So this time it's not that we're saying .len, we're now calling len, which is a function in Python. It's basically short for length. So we're calling that function in Python and we're passing in a string to get the length of that string. So you can print and then put len, which is now calling the function, and len takes in that string. And then we could put message. And then what it now does, it will take message and calculate how long the string is. So let's run that. It gave us 22. So the reason now it's 22 is it counts the spaces. So each space here is its own character. So space is a character, letter is a character, number is a character. So there's 22 characters in this specific string. That's what len does for you in strings. So those are your string methods, and yeah, that's how you work with strings. Then we will go into slicing and indexing. Okay, I'll just put these on their own again. Okay, commenting these out just so that we can run other stuff without having this interfere with the code. We'll just clear the terminal again. Now we move on to indexing and slicing. Okay, let's have our word. You know, we say from grassroots to greatness, so we'll have our word greatness. That's the word we'll be slicing, indexing, and all that, right? Now, when you look at a string is basically a list, right? Or it's basically a list. So in the string, greatness all has a specific number indexed, right? So we want to see, okay, let's say we wanted to print in a string only the first word. How would we do that? We'd look at greatness as a string. Now, I mean, as an index. So indexing starts from 0 all the time. First letter would be 0. So what you do is, if you check G is 0, R is 1, so on and so forth, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Right? Now if we print, and we print word, we want to print and then we could put message, and then what it now does, it will take message and calculate how long the string is. So let's run that. It gave us 22. So the reason now it's 22 is it counts the spaces. So each space here is its own character. So space is a character, letter is a character, number is a character. So there's 22 characters in this specific string. That's what len does for you in strings. So those are your string methods, and yeah, that's how you work with strings. Then we will go into slicing and indexing. Okay, I'll just put these on their own again. Okay, commenting these out just so that we can run other stuff without having this interfere with the code. We'll just clear the terminal again. Now we move on to indexing and slicing. Okay, let's have our word. You know, we say from grassroots to greatness, so we'll have our word greatness. That's the word we'll be slicing, indexing, and all that, right? Now, when you look at a string is basically a list, right? Or it's basically a list. So in the string, greatness all has a specific number indexed, right? So we want to see, okay, let's say we wanted to print in a string only the first word. How would we do that? We'd look at greatness as a string. Now, I mean, as an index. So indexing starts from 0 all the time. First letter would be 0. So what you do is, if you check G is 0, R is 1, so on and so forth, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Right? Now if we print, and we print word, we want to print again the first letter only. So the first letter is index 0. But now how do we do that? To do that is, we'll call word, right? Word again is a variable of a string. But again, a string can be a list or an integer or an index rather. So how do you now call a specific letter in a string? You use square brackets. So these are square brackets. Square brackets basically says I'm now calling an index of this word. But which index are you calling? I'm calling index 0 because index 0 is the G. So that should print out our G in the word greatness. So let's run that and see. So it printed out G as expected. So that's position 0. So you don't ever assume that the list starts at 1, 2, 3. It always index from 0. So if you're getting the first, it will be 0 in all instances. Then let's say we wanted to just get the word great and not get greatness as an entire word. So we can print again. But now as we're printing, we will put word, and now we want to get from G to T. If you look at the word G is 0, R is 1, E is 2, A is 3, T is 4. Okay, now you'd assume that we'll put 0 to 4, right? Now that will be an issue because it will only give us the word gray, which is G-R-E-A. As you can see down here, we see G-R-E-A. Now why is that? We want from 0 to 4. Why are we not getting the fourth word? Because we are having indexing, or we looping into the index. When we start at 0 and we end at 4, we're telling the program stop at 4, meaning don't even count 4. So it's not going to count number 4. It's going to go from 0 to 3 basically. So you're stopping at 4. Now what you want to do to be able to get that fourth word, you need to stop at 5 so that you get number 4. So if we run it again, now we get the word great. And that's how you get specific index within a word. Let's say we want to get a word from the back of the string. So the back of the string would be the S. Remember, start is G and then S is the back. Now that's called the negative index, right? So we're saying going backwards negatively. So it counts negative from the back. So we can print and then we put word and an index of -1. So that will start at the back and print the word or the letter S. So if we run that, we get the letter S. So those are your 3 different index and slicing. So indexing, you index like a list. So if you have an array, the first word in the array would be index 0. The last one out of 3 would be index 3 or 4. So basically that's how you think of a word when you're trying to index in the word. It's the same as a list. So that's what indexing does. Indexing and slicing. This is your slicing where you're trying to get from one letter to a specific letter and stop there. That's basically your index and slicing, and that's our unit 2, manipulating strings and formatting. So we already did the formatting, which was all the different formats for strings, the F string as well as indexing and slicing. So that's how we get that part done. Then again, when you go onto the LMS, make sure you mark all your stuff as completed, watch the lessons, do the reading materials, which is what we actually just went through. And then there's additional resources. If you feel like you don't understand, try to watch the additional resources to get a better understanding before you start the quiz. So the quiz needs you to be very, you need to understand what you're doing, right? So you need to make sure you understand as much as you can. So this challenge is the CQ password hint tool. So because I want to get through all the stuff, I'm not going to do all the challenges, but based on what we've done, you should be able to at least now have a better understanding on how to do it, because I've taught you dot strip, I've taught you exactly how to get the first letter, the last letter, and printing in a F string. So this should be a simple task to do. So we'll move on to unit number 3. Unit number 3 is manipulating numbers. So your typecasting, basically maths. This is sort of your maths part of coding, understanding how to add stuff, to get percentage, division, etc. So we'll get into that now, and let's just get into it. So again, we'll create a new file. We'll call it unit 3. The reason I'm calling these by the units is so that when you want to go back into the code, at least you can go back to see in unit 1, this is what I covered, in unit 2, this is what I covered, this is how the code ran. So that's the easiest way for you to go back and learn. So we'll call it unit3.py and have our fresh code here. We'll clear our terminal so that our terminal is clear for us to run again. Okay, so Python can be the world's, it's basically like a calculator, right? It can be a calculator, but again, you need to know what symbols you need to use to be able to calculate. So we'll do the simple ones. Addition. If we say print 10 plus 3, we'll get 13, of course, right? So 13 gets outputted. That's the simple stuff. We've got addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, right? So I'll just write all of them. 10 minus 3, 10 times 3. For times, it's the asterisk, which is above your 8. So that's the times that we use. And then we'll print division. 10 divided by 3. Okay, division is your /. It's like dividing like a fraction. So that's how it is. If you run this, this will automatically do all the functions. So adding, subtraction, etc. Then there's the division itself. As you can see, it gave us 3, 3, 3, all the way to 3, 5, right? In some instances, you might want to get it to a specific decimal point. We'll get into that as well. We also have our powers as well. So like your 3 or 10 to the power 2 or 3 to the power whatever. So if we wanted 10 to the power 2, we'll put 2 asterisks for us to get the power of something. So we can run that, and we've got 10 to the power of 2, 100, right? Okay, so let's try and understand again. This again is just more understanding the symbols than actually maths, because we're doing symbols here. So let's say we had 14 people at the rank, and a taxi takes 4 people, right? So for us to do that, we'd say 14 divisible by 4. So basically, float division is the whole part, right? So the full taxi leaves the moment there's 4, right? So if we had to print that, let's see what number we get. We get 3, right? So 3 is that number, and then if we wanted to get how many people are left standing in the rank, if we said print 14 percentage sign, so that's just getting a remainder of something, right? So 14 remainder of 4, that's how many is left, right? So that's how you do remainder. That's how you get a full taxi, basically, yeah, which is 3.14. If you wanted to round that off, there is a specific function in Python that allows you to round that off. And then if you've got something like conversion, if you want to change something from, yeah, so you also have conversion. If you want to change something from a string to an integer, that's exactly what we'll do as well. So let's do the rounding here. We'll have a price here. Our price will be 19 Rand 99 cents. How do we round this off, right? Python has a function called round. It's literally rounding off. It's called round. So round would be, we write the function round and put in whatever you are rounding off. So we are rounding off price. And then what that will do is it will run the function round and then take the price and round it off. So if we run that, it rounded it off to 20. So I'll just clear just so we can see it at the top. It says 20, right? So we've rounded off 19.99 to 20. Then we've got another one where you can round off to how many decimal points. Maybe we want to round off to 2 decimal points. So we'll print round. But now we're going to round off the value of pi, 3.14159 dot 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 dot, right? So let's say we want to round this off to only 2 decimal points. What you'll do is in your round can take another parameter. So your first parameter is the value. Second parameter can be in how many decimal points you want to round off that specific value to. So we want to round off to a value 2 decimal points. So you'll put in 2, which will allow you to round off to 2. And if you check down there, we've got 3.14. So instead of 3.14159, we've got 3.14. And then the last one would be conversion. So to convert basically is we have an integer we want to get as a string or vice versa. So let's have an input, I guess. We could have age. We'll ask for someone's age. Ask for your age, and then we'll say, how old are you? Okay, so that will ask for the age, and then that age will be stored in the integer. So we can print the age. Let's see what happens. So for now, I will comment out the other stuff so that we can only have this part printing. And then we'll run the code. Ask me how old I am. I say 23, and it prints out 23, right? Now imagine I wanted to print out and add a 1, right? Let's say age plus 1. Obviously, we know that when the person adds an age, it's going to be a string, an integer, and then we can add, right? So when we run that, we'll put 23, and it's going to give us an error. We had this error in the first part, can only concatenate string and not integer. Now, the reason is because we are trying to add age, which is now a string because it came from here, into this integer. So we're trying to say string plus a number, which does not work. You need to be able to add or concatenate strings, or if you're adding, you need to add 2 integers. So to do that, you could change this into an integer. So that will change this to an integer, and then it will do the arithmetic function, which is adding. There we go. So now it said 24. So I now changed now changed age, which was a string, into integer, because we got it from an input. Input returns a string, and we want it back as an integer, so we can change that to integer. Instead of doing it at the print function, you could also do it directly in your actual variable. So you could wrap the entire input in an int, so that as soon as your value gets back and you assign it to your age or your variable, it will be assigned as an integer. So if we run this again, it should not crash, even without us making this an integer. So we will put 23, and it adds. So literally, that's how we do conversion, and those are your arithmetic functions: adding, subtraction, etc. That's just for you to understand how we can add stuff, minus, etc., and then convert something from a string to an integer and vice versa. And that was it for Unit 3. That was the main stuff. Then you can go through again on Unit 3, read all the stuff, and then watch the lessons if you needed a deep understanding, and then reading materials. So we did get this part, the typecast. So we did get a typecast when we tried to run age plus 1 before making it an integer. So that's typecasting. So we're trying to cast something as a different type, and it's not correct. Mark that as complete. But yeah, that is basically the maths of Python. It's just for you to understand how to do that. Then you'll do the task and the challenge, and then do the Unit 3 quiz. So once you're done with Unit 3 quiz, you'll mark it as complete, and then we can move on to Unit number 4. Okay, so Unit 4 is storage and access. What is the storage and access? This is basically now us having lists, basically storing stuff in our lists, indexing, all of that stuff, right? So I'll try and go deeper into that. You can read up on that, what you'll be learning by the end of this unit. So we can go back to our IDE and go to Unit number 4. Unit4.py is the file we'll be creating, and we can start writing code there. So let's start with list, right? So remember I said a variable is like a box, right? Then think of a list as a taxi. So in a taxi, you've got many passengers all in one vehicle, and let's say, or actually let's change it to a flight. So in a flight or in a plane, you've got multiple people all with assigned numbers, ordered numbers on seats, right? So every seat is numbered from 0 all the way to the back, and that's all in one plane. So you've got plane with passengers all on seats. Remember that, plane on passengers, plane with passengers all on specific seat numbers. So variable is a box, a list is like a plane with passengers all with numbers. So let's get into a list, right? So we could now, let's create a list. We'll have a variable, we'll call it passengers, and then how do we create a list? So we wouldn't just type all the names like that. It's not going to make it a list. The correct syntax for creating a list is using square brackets. Remember when we were indexing, we were trying to get in a list, we're using square brackets. That's the same thing for you to define a list or an array, is what they'd also call it. So you put your square brackets and then start putting the names of the people. We'll put Tabo, Simpiwe. Okay, I just put 4 names. So let's say this plane has 4 passengers, meaning there's 4 seat numbers. Don't forget that. There's 4 seat numbers. Okay, let's say we wanted to get the name of the first passenger in our plane. How would we do that? We'd print and then have our variable passengers, and then we call the index of that first one. So basically, when you look at the list, Tabo has seat number 0, Simpiwe has seat number 1, Lerato has seat number 2, Sanele has seat number 3. That's how you now start calling and understanding how to get specific values in a list. So we want to call Tabo, which is the first person. So seat number 1 would be 0, which is Tabo, and that will print Tabo, right? So it prints Tabo, which is as we wanted it. And then let's say we wanted to get the last seat in the plane. We already did that in the previous units. So to get the last part of the string would be the same thing to get the last item in a list. So that's the same way as getting the last passenger in our list. So the way we did that is we said -1 to get the last of the list. So if we had to print that, it should return number 1 and the last one. So this is the first in the list, and then this is the last in the list. That's how you remember how to get the specific ones. Then another function we did with the strings, again, like I said, a string is the same as a list. We were able to get the length of the string, right? Let's say we want to get the length of the list itself. We use len again as per usual and put in the variable, which is the list of passengers. When we run that, we get 4. So now it didn't count each character like it did with the string. It now counted each value, each word in the list, because each word is separated by a comma. Tabo is its own word, Simpiwe is its own word, Lerato is its own word, Sanele is its own word. So it counted all of that and it equated that to 4. That's how it was able to add or get an entire list of all the passengers. Now let's say we want to add someone into this plane. Someone also booked a flight, right? They want to also get seated, but their seat is seat number 5. So to do that, we can first call our list. So when I say call our list, it means I just write our list, which is the variable, and then there's a function called append. Now append means add, right? We're now adding. But what append does, it will always add to the end of the list. It will not add it before, in the middle, whatever. It will add to the end of the list. So we do .append, and then we can append the string, right? So instead of us now, let's say you've got a long code and you need to now go find where this variable is. It is easy, but now you don't want to keep adding into the list. You want it to be very automated. So we can append onto the existing list. We'll append Tabiso. Right? So we append a word, and then that will now say, okay, when I get this list of mine, take the word Tabiso, add it into this list, right? And then let's run that. Obviously we didn't print yet, so we can print the list. We print the list and Tabiso should be added. As you can see, now we've got Tabo, Simpiwe, Lerato, Sanele, and Tabiso. So instead of just the 4 passengers, now we were able to append a 5th passenger, right? So let's say we've got Simpiwe. Simpiwe has now reached his destination. It's a stopover, whatever, right? So let's say Simpiwe has reached his destination. How do we now say he's off the plane? We need to now take him off, right? We need to be able to take him off. So what we can do with that one is we say passengers dot remove. Dot remove will now expect in your list an exact string that you are trying to remove. So if I had to put Simpiwe, it's now going to remove Simpiwe from the list, and then we can print out the final list. So let's print passengers, and we'll print it before as well, just so we can see the difference. We print passengers. Okay, as you can see, I've got like an error here. So those are also some stuff most people might come about. You know, you put the wrong brackets. So instead of putting curly brackets, you put square, etc. So it's very good to always read and check what the error says, because errors are very descriptive in most instances. So it will tell you exactly where you're going wrong, so you can understand what you need to change for you to do it. Okay, so we've got passengers that are pinned. We're now adding a person, and now dot remove is us now removing a person. So let's run this code. Clear, just getting that empty, and then we run the code. Okay, so we'll see now we've got Tabo, Simpiwe, Lerato, Sanele, Tabiso. Then the next list now says Tabo, Lerato. Simpiwe has now been removed from the list. So you see, it was able to remove Simpiwe from the list which is what we wanted. Now, let's say we wanted to replace someone with the existing person. Let's say seat 1 had this person, but now we want someone else to take place in that seat, right? So we could do passengers. Which seat are we trying to replace, right? Let's say we want to replace seat number 1. Seat number 1 is Thabo. So we need to call that specific seat in the index, which is Thabo. So we'll call index 0, and then we'll say that's equal to whoever we are replacing them with. We'll just say Katlego, right? Now Thabo will be replaced with Katlego. So passengers 0, which is now we're saying passengers index 0, you are now equal to Katlego. You are no longer equal to Thabo, you are now equal to Katlego. So let's print that and run that. Now when we look at our list, Katlego is there and Thabo is no longer there. We were able to replace this. Alright, so I just noticed that we spelled Lirato wrong. We said Liraro, right? And we don't have to now go all the way to the function to replace it. Let's just use what we've learned to actually fix it up, right? So we could just do passengers and then get the index of Lirato, right? Which is 1, 2, 3. So that's 0, 1, 2. So we'll put index 2 and then equate that to the right spelling. Lirato, right? Now let's print the list. But I want you guys to see what could happen. Let's print passengers and run that. Okay, now if you look at my list, it says Katlego, Liraro, Lirato, and then Thabiso. Why did that happen? In everything we've done up here, we already removed, the list has now changed, indexes have changed, so we now know Lirato is no longer index number 2. Lirato is index number 1 because after removing Simpiwe, she moves up. So we can change that to 1 and then run that, and now Lirato is replaced correctly. So now she's spelled correctly. Now there was one more thing. We can check if something is in a list, right? So to check, we can just say, what are we trying to check? Lirato in, right? So in is it's just a function that will now check this variable that they're asking, is it inside of passengers? So it's going to just say Lirato in passengers is checking, and what it needs to return is a boolean, because remember, you're asking a question. It needs to tell you that yes or no, which is true or false. Is it in or is it not in? If you run that, it prints true because Lirato is in. But if we had ran this before putting this new code, it would have given us a false because Lirato is not there, but Liraro is there. So if we run that, it gives us a false. So yeah, those are some stuff you can use to actually play around with your lists. Then we can just move on to working with dictionaries, right? So like we said, a list is like a numbered seats, right, on a plane. When you look at a dictionary, it's in the word, you are looking for something, right? Think of it like a school register. You look up people by their name. So they all have a specific key that you look them up by. So seats or lists is a numbered seats, and then a dictionary is like a school register. So let's now dive into the dictionary part of it. I'll just comment this code out so we can run the other code nicely. Okay, and clear our terminal. All right, so let's have a dictionary called student. Right, now student has specific attributes to it, right? Students can have the name. So it can have a name, can have an age, and then can have a course. So obviously the course will say is FNB Python, FNB App Academy Python Masterclass. We can just say Python Masterclass. Right, that's the course they're assigned to. Now, just look, I've got an error here, right? And the reason I have this error is because I forgot something. If you hover over any error, it tells you exactly what the issue is. Like I said, it says statements must be separated by new lines or semicolons. So obviously, if you go to line number 22, after tabo, I forgot to add a comma or a semicolon. So if I put a comma, it now fixes up the syntax and there's no error. So some errors you might not even see where the issue is, but if you just hover over where it says it's got an issue, it will tell you exactly how to fix it. So that's the main part of it, right? Now we've got this dictionary. So this student is a dictionary, right? So this is the syntax to create one. You've got curly brackets, and then you've got key value, key value, key value. Key is the unique part, value is the value of that key. So name is a key, tabo is a value. Age is a key, the age 23 is a value. Course is a key, Python Masterclass is the value of that key. Now let's print, we'll print something by checking its key, right? So remember we did the list where we were checking with an index, right? So if we had to say student, and then we want to get the key, right? Instead of now us saying student 0, index 0, this is not working with index, it's working with keys. So the unique key would be a name, age, or course. Let's say we want to get the name. So we'll put the name, which will allow us to get the name of the student in that dictionary. So let's run that, and it gave us tabo. So that's how we now call a value of a key in a dictionary. So like I said, we've got our dictionary, key value, key value. So in a dictionary as well, your key would be the letter, value would be the word you're actually looking at. The dictionary is student. Dictionary, you open up, you're looking for a key, you're looking for the value. That's exactly the easiest way to understand what it does. Now let's say you wanted to add a new entry into this dictionary. So add a new word into the dictionary. How would we do that? So we'll now put student and then write the key that we're trying to add. Yes. Okay. Where do I go back from?
Yeah, just go back to the previous command, exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
We add it from...
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so we are able to get the name tabo, right? So let's say we wanted to add a new entry into this dictionary. So we want to add something else. So what we'll do is we'll write the name of our dictionary and then put our square brackets. So we need to now add the key that we are trying to add, right? The key we're trying to add maybe would be city. So that's the key, and then we'll add the value of that key. So city is Joburg. So we're telling it that student's key of city must be Joburg. So the moment now you call this dictionary, there will be an entry of city that is equal to Joburg. Then let's print student as is, and let's run the code. So now you see how we get the code formatted. It all comes in curly braces. So you've got our name, which is Tabo, age 23, course Python Masterclass, city Joburg, right? So it was able to add that key into our dictionary. So one thing you should also know is, let's try and see possible errors you might come up with or come into. We'll go back to the list as well, right? Now we want to access this list. We want to access the list and then have an error so you guys can also do some troubleshooting on your own. So imagine we wanted to print the list, right? List of passengers, and we wanted index 10. If we ran that, it will give us list index out of range. So this is basically an error to say you're trying to index something that's not within our range. Our range is from whatever 0 to the last index that we have after we've appended and removed etc. So obviously after we've appended and removed, we've got 4 in our list. So it's obviously going to be from a range of 0 to 3. That's our max. So an easier way for you to understand, or at least to know where to stop, you could just say your list, your last index of the list minus 1. So if it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, it would be 0 to 4, right? So it will just be that for you to understand. At least that's my last, or the last part I can do. I can't go beyond 4 and then try to get something out of 4. So that's lists for unit 4, and we should be done with unit 4. If we go back to our LMS, we'll read again and then mark everything we've done as completed, just so again we can keep tracking our progress and finishing the entire masterclass. So we did the list, dictionary, type of dictionaries, then you've got tuples and immutable lists. So tuples is basically almost like a list, but it's something that you cannot change once you've created it, right? So it's immutable. Mutable means changeable, like you can change it again. Immutable means once it's created, you cannot change it. It stays as is. So as it says here, if you have coordinates, that's like a tuple. So to create a tuple, maybe we'd say coordinates is equal to 6.1, comma. So that's our tuple. We can't change this value. Once we have it, it's as is. So to create a tuple, you use, what's this? What do they call it? The normal brackets. So the circular brackets, not the square brackets or the curly braces, you use the normal brackets to create a tuple. So it's the same as a list, but it's immutable. It does not change. So if you try to change it, like it says here, it will raise a type error. Then we'll mark that as completed. You've got additional resources again, and then a task, and then the challenge. So you'll try the challenge. Again, everything that's here is something we have done, so you should be able to do the challenge with ease. That's it for unit 4. Once you're done, you'll do the quiz, and then we move on to unit number 5. Now, unit number 5 is selection of tasks. Selection of tasks is basically your conditioning and decision making. So decision making is the logic, if this, do that, if not, and then if something happens, this is the decision you need to make, etc. So it's your else, your if statements, operators, all of that stuff. So let's just get into the code for us to get a better understanding on how it works. So we'll create a new file, and we'll call it unit5.py. And we can start writing our code. So selection of tasks is, think of it as a security guard at an event, right? The security guard basically has a list of people. If you're on the list, you're able to go through it. If you're not on the list, you can't go through. Or let's say you've got a list. If you're on the list, go to door number 1. If you have a visitor's pass, so that means else if you're on a visitor's pass, go to door number 2. And if you don't have at all, you're not on the list, just you're not coming in today. So let's write just a few statements for you to see the comparison logic that we can work with. So we'll print 5 is equal to 5. Okay, now you're looking at double equals and asking yourself why we're doing double equals. This is comparison, right? To compare when it comes to checking if two things are true or two things are equal to one another, we use double equals. So that just says, is this equal to this? Again, like we did previously, the moment it's a question, it requires an answer. So if this is equal to this, we need to get an answer of true or false, yes or no, because you're asking a straightforward question. Is 5 equal to 5, yes or no? So that should print true because 5 is indeed equal to 5. So if we run that, okay, let's clear our terminal first, then we run it again, and we get true. So true is what we get after running 5 equal to 5. Another one we've got is 5 greater than 8. So we could just say 5 greater than 8. So this is greater than, less than signs that we, again, the maths version part of stuff. So greater than, meaning is this number greater than this one? Again, it's a question. So the moment it's a question, it expects an answer, which is a Boolean value, true or false. So we're asking Python, is Python is 5 greater than 8? Python will now check and be like, no, it's not. So it will give us false because 5 is not greater than 8. Then one more is we could check, is something not equal to something? So again, it's still a question. So let's print 5 is not equal to 3. Now, not equal is exclamation mark equal. So again, it's a sentence. If you read it, it's like a sentence. 5 is not equal to 3. The exclamation mark basically now says we're saying not. If we had an exclamation, if we had two equals, it means equals. And then if we have one before the equals, we say not equal to, not greater than, not less than, you know. So the not will be an exclamation mark before the conditional value you are trying to check. So you'll be not equal. So again, still a question, we need to be returned a value or a boolean, which would be true or false. So 5 is not equal to 3. That is true. So we get back true in our print statement. So one sign, basically the first equal sign will store, and then the second one will compare. So if you have equal, just one equal, you must know that that means storing, like assigning, adding something to something. If you have two, you are now saying I'm comparing. So that's how you can just make sure you differentiate between the equal signs, because they are the same in assigning and in your comparison. So 5 double equals would be comparison. That's how comparison stuff. Okay, now let's check something about, let's do an airtime balance check, right? So we'll have something, a variable called balance, and then we'll make that a float. So float means we're allowing the value to have decimal points. We don't want, if we said integer, we wanted a straight integer with no decimal point. So float will allow us to at least have it with decimal points. So 5 rand 95 cents, you know, as an example. So we'll do float, and then we'll have an input. And then we can just ask the user to enter their airtime balance. Right, so they need to enter the airtime balance. We'll just put the R there. Now, we want to do a few gated or few logical statements to check what the user can do if their balance is a certain number, right? So we could just say maybe if their balance is greater than 90 Rand, they can buy 1 gig bundle of data. If it's less than 29 Rand or something, they can get a smaller bundle. Then if they're not, they need to, you know, do something else. So let's write how that would look in our code way, right? So again, code is literally a sentence or words. You just need to read it like you're reading a book or something, right? So for us to now basically do what I just spoke about, or the conditions I just said, we'll say if, right? If the user's balance is greater or equal to 90 Rand. So we are just saying that, okay, if balance, meaning the value again, remember it's a variable, if that variable is greater or equal to 90, the reason we're saying or equal is because we want that if a person has exactly 90 Rand, they're still able to buy. But if they've got 89 Rand, obviously they can't. So if we did not put greater or equal to, it's gonna want anything 91 and above, which is not correct because the value of the bundle would be 90 Rand. So we'll say if balance greater or equal to 90. Now, syntax wise, we need to add something here to now get into what must happen if that condition is true. So what must happen, we need to put colon. Colon now tells Python that, hey, this is my if statement, this is where we're stopping, and now you need to get into the if statement to understand what you need to output if this condition in this if statement is true. Now, what is the condition? I'll just highlight. What I'm highlighting there is your condition. The first part is if, that part is your condition. So balance greater than equal to 90 is your condition. You are checking, is that thing true? And then if you remember, if you know, if true will always now run whatever is next in line. So if true. So what Python will do, it will say if, right? And then now it's going to take balance greater or equal to 90. It's going to evaluate or equate that and then give us the value. Remember, like I said, it's a question you're asking. It needs to return true or false. So since it needs to return true or false, this part that I've highlighted will return true or false before we even get anywhere, right? So balance is greater than 90. Based on whatever the user inputs, let's say it returns true. So Python will change this to true. That's how it's going to look. It's going to say if true. You're not doing it, Python's doing it. It's going to change it to true. And then now that we know it's true, it's going to go into the first line. So we'll just go back. That's basically what Python does there, just so you can understand why we put the condition there. Then we need to tell Python to do something if that condition is true there. We can just say, you can buy 1 gig of data. Okay, now that we know that the user's balance is greater than 90, we're allowing them to buy the data because they've got more than the amount that they require to buy the data. But now what if they don't have it, right? So like I said, the bouncer, they've got a list to say, if you do qualify, you go here. If you don't, you go here. If you have this, maybe we'll allow this, you know? So how do we do that in the code part? To do that, we can say else if. So we're saying that this is my first condition. If this is true, do it. But if you're saying, okay, this is not true, I want you to now try something else. It's just to allow at least something else so that the user does not get into a dead end of an error, right? So you're just saying, if this is happening, do it. But if the user does not qualify for this, try this part. So we just say else if. So instead of saying else if, we just write else if. That's the syntax, right? And then else if, because now you're still having an if, it now requires your comparison or your comparison again, right? Because you need to say else if something happens, do this. So what must be that something for you to get a true again, right? So that's something we could say else if the balance is greater or equal to 29 Rand, right? So if the balance is 29 Rand, we can give them a bundle of 100 megabytes, right? So print, you can get 100 megabytes, right? So that's just at least to know that the user has a balance. They can't get 1 gig, but at least they can get 100 megabytes because they've got something that is about 29 Rand, right? So now you might be seeing that, okay, the user has the balance of 90, and they might, if they have 90, they also have greater than 29. But if you know Python, Python is a top-down programming language. It goes line by line. So it goes line by line. If the user has 90 Rand, 29 Rand comparison will never get executed because the first part is already true. You do not have to worry about going to the else if. So yes, they both kind of the same thing, because if it's greater than 90, it is greater than 29, which is the same thing. But now you want to say that at least if someone has just over 29, but they didn't qualify for just over 90, they at least can get 100 megabytes, you know? So that's how it will work there, just so you can understand the difference between the two there. Then again, Python will say balance greater or equal to 29, yes or no. It will say yes. Okay, then if it's a yes, it will come down and then print get 100 megabytes. But now let's say the user has none of that. We need to always have a fallback for a user that does not have anything that we are looking for. So we need to say, oh, you don't have this, oh, you don't have, you don't have this, you don't have that. You know what? This is, unfortunately, you can't get anything, right? So that will be the else part of it, to say, if this, try this. If this, try this. You can do multiple else if statements. But at the moment you say, you know what, these are all the conditions I cater for. The moment you say, yeah, if you don't qualify none of this, else do this. So now we're at the else part. We say print, and we can just say, time to get, like, please call something. Yeah, so that's your conditionals. Your if balance is greater than, you do something. If that part did not pass, meaning it was false, it comes to the second part, checks it. If it also was false, then it will default to the else, which is the last part of the code. So let's run this and then see what happens. We'll just comment out this code and then clear our task, our terminal, and run the code. Okay, so it asks us to enter our airtime balance. Let's say we've got 10 Rand. So now it tells us, time to do a please call, sorry. Because 10 Rand is not greater than 90, 10 Rand is not greater than 29, meaning the last part it comes to is the else statement. If we run it again, and we just said we got 29 Rand, it now says, okay, I tried to check balance. what it does, it will change and say 29 greater or equal to 90, which is false. Then it will change here and say 29 greater or equal to 29, which is true. Then it now gets into the statement. So that's what happened. That's what Python will do. And then let's say now we had 95 Rand or 100 Rand. Just like that, it will say 100 greater or equal to 90, which is true, then get into the statement. So that's how it is. So indentation, I don't know if you see the indentation. So between the 8 and the print, there's a space there. That's called indentation, right? You indent to get into the if statement. So the moment you have if and you had a colon, you indent in. If you put it like that, it's an error. So Python is very specific with indentation, especially for functions, if statements. You need to indent so that the code that's running is running for that line that was previous. So to indent, if you didn't indent, you can press tab, which will put an indent, and then the code will run as it should. So that's basically that. This if balance greater than 90 is its own, right? So if it's true, that what runs. But if the balance is greater than 29, that's what runs. And then if not, it will say else and get to something else. That's your conditionals. Now, let's say we want to combine conditions, right? Let's say we want two separate values or two separate or logical decisions for someone to get something. So if someone is of this age and has this, they can do this, right? So let's take an example of a bar, right? So we'll have an age, we'll say the age is 20 years, then has an ID, we'll make it true. So I just assigned has ID to true, which is a Boolean, and then 20 is our integer, which is our age, right? So we could do this again. We could just say if our age is greater or equal to 18. So obviously to get in, you need to be 18 and you need to have an ID. So you can say and has ID, right? And then we want to do something. So we can say print welcome in, right? Now, what does Python do here? Python now looks at this code and goes, okay, what is the very value of age? Value of age is 20. 20 is greater or equal to 18, yes or no? Yes, it is. It changes it and says true. So let's just do that for demonstration purposes. It says true because age is greater than 20, right? Age is greater than 18, which is true. Then it will say and has ID. Now it will check the value of has ID. What is the value of has ID? True as well. So Python says if true and true, which is true, then go into the code. But let's say had ID was false. So it will say if true and false. That is not true. That condition is not true. So obviously it means we can't run the next line of code. So that's just a demonstration for you to at least see how Python now inserts our Boolean values after answering the question and getting into the code. So it does the age and the has ID, and if both of those are true, it will work. But we can now have, and I want to say if your age is less than 18 or you don't have an ID, or you don't have an ID, not tonight, chief. Okay, so those are two separate if statements, right? I didn't do an else if, I did two separate if statements. First one checks true, says this one and this one have to be true together for us to print. Second one says this one or this one has to be true for us to print. So it's just saying that, hey, you've got age less than 18. Is 20 less than 18? No, right? But has no ID. So if they don't have the ID, which would be true, they still do, right? So let's just run this code. Oh, we'll switch off the balance for now. Comment that out. Clear. Okay, so the first thing as I ran it, it just gave me welcome in. This did not even execute. That's because 20 less than 18, not true, or not has ID, they do. So one of them is true. So has ID is true, which means you have an ID. So you this function will not get into the not, because we didn't add an else, number one, and we didn't add the age is not correct, right? So age is correct, it ran. If we changed age to 16, let's run it again. This code itself did not even execute because both conditions were not true at the same time. Both have to be true at the same time because we added the and. If we said or, if we change this to or, that's when it will run because one of them will be true. So we say or, then both of them ran because age less than 18 is false but has ID is true, that runs. Then the second part also runs because age is less than 18, which is true. I don't know if that makes sense. That should make sense. Okay, that is our conditions. That is our unit 5, conditions and decision making. Basically just understanding how to write if, else if, the statements, and then all the comparison operators, and then using those conditions or those operators to write logical statements. So you'll just mark as completed, do the lesson video, mark as completed, and then all the reading materials. So we did all of this, mark as completed, and then go over additional resources if you feel like you did not understand as much as you wanted to. And then once you're done, you do the challenge. Again, challenge is now asking us to do a loop. Then in the loop we need to, so this is all the stuff basically we've done previously. So that allows us to use all the previous units to now work on the specific challenge. Then we'll move on to unit number 6. So this is our last and final unit before you can start the summative assessment. So this one is called repeating tasks, loops and iteration. It's in the word, we are looping multiple times, we're doing stuff again and again and again, right? So loops and iterations, we can go back to our VS Code and create the last Python file, unit6.py. Unit6.py is loops, right? So when you look at a loop is like a washing machine, right? It's a cycle. You don't wash every sock, you don't press buttons to keep washing each and every item that you load within the machine. You put everything together and everything runs again and again at the same time, right? So a for loop is saying, I want you to run the cycle this many times. Then while it's saying, while this is spinning, just make sure that the clothes are clean. So it's to say, for while true or while spinning, do this code, meaning keep spinning. So while the clothes, or while it's spinning, make the clothes clean. If you're saying for, you'll say for the range. So let's say you want to do 6 cycles. So for range, or for I in the range of 1 to 6, every time it counts, it's going to go I is 1, I is 2, I is 3, I is 4, I is 5. The moment it says I is 6, it's done. It's now reached completion and it's done. So that's for and while loops. But let's just dive deeper into how to write the code and understand a bit more on the code itself. Okay, so for, we'll do for loop here. This is when you want to know how many spins, right? So you have basically a number of how many times you want to do something again and again. So let's do for number. Okay, I'll just have to also explain the actual syntax that I'm writing here. For number in range, we'll say range 1 to 6. Okay, what does this mean? For says, okay, we're starting a for loop. Then number says for each number, so for each value. So number now becomes a variable in the range. So we're saying for each number in range 1 to 6, meaning for each number in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, do something, right? So we can say number becomes 1 as it loops. So number will become 1 and then it will do something. Then number will become 2, it will do something. Number will become 3. So that value number changes based on what is in your second part, which is your range. So if it's in a list, in whatever, for name in this list, it will be each value in the list. So think of range as a list, right? So let's just write the code just so you can at least see what it does, and then it might be clearer. We'll just clear the terminal, and then don't forget indentation. Indentation is important. We do for number in range 1 to 6. Let's print. We'll have an F string, lesson, and we'll just say number, loading. Right? So what it now will do, let's run the code so you can see. It says lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what Python did, it came into this code here, and then it said range 1 to 6. We start by 1. It will come in this line and then fill in the number with 1. Then it will come back and say, okay, we haven't reached the end of the range yet. We need to now go to 2. So it will replace number with 2, come back in, put number 2, go back. Have we reached it? No. 3, go back in. 4, go back in. 5, go back in. 6, yes. So stop. So you see, it did not print 6. Same way I did it in the first lesson where we were slicing an index. You do not, if you wanted it to go all the way to 6, you'll say range 1 to 7 because it ends at number 7. It does not print number 7. So it'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As soon as 6 is there, it does not come back for that 6th cycle. It stops at number 5. So that's how the range works, and that's how you print within a range. So we could also loop within a list. So let's have our list of passengers again. Tabo, Sampiwe, Lerato, Sanele. Okay, we've got 4 people, right? Now we wanna go into this list of the 4 people and give each of them a welcome message. How would we do that? For loop works in our advantage. We could do for person and passengers. So what we're now saying is for each person in the list of passengers, you're going to assign person to the word of the passenger in each list, right? So we've got the list of passengers. Each person has a name. So we'll say person will be equal to Tabo, person will be equal to Simpiwe, person will be equal to Lerato, person will be equal to Sanele, right? So we'll say for each person in passengers, we want to print something, right? So we'll print welcome, and then we'll put person, right? Don't forget your F string, welcome person, right? So it's going to say, okay, I've got this variable person, it's assigned to nothing. Let me go in passengers. In passengers, the first person is Tabo. So now Tabo is equal, person is equal to Tabo. Now it comes back and it prints welcome Tabo. Then it's going to go back and say, okay, person is now equal to Simpiwe. Come, say person is equal to Simpiwe, come back in, then say welcome Simpiwe, then loop again. Person is Lerato, come back in, loop again. Person is Sanele, come back in, loop again. And then it's like, oh, we're done with all the people in the passengers list. Then it finishes there. So for loop will always execute until it gets to the end of whatever list or range it was going in. Hence we say you know how long or how many times you want to go around is when you use the for loop. So we can run this and it printed welcome Tabo, welcome Simpiwe, welcome Lerato, welcome Sanele. That's literally what a for loop does. Just goes as many times as you wanted it to go. So it's for when you know how long or if you want to iterate in a list. So again, I've been saying looping, but basically what you're doing is you are iterating in each value in your list. Then let's move on to doing a while loop. So we'll have a value called airtime, right? And we'll say this person has 50 Rand of airtime. Then while the airtime is greater than 0 Rand, it means they can do something, right? So if the airtime is greater than 0 Rand, they're doing something. Now let's understand what this line of code does. While, it's in the word while doing something. While this continue. While this continue. So this again is a conditional statement like we did in the previous one. Airtime greater than 0, is it true or false? You're asking, is airtime greater or equal to 0 or greater than 0? Yes or no? Airtime is greater than 0, which is true. So meaning the while loop has to start running. So it will say yes, it's true, and it will start running. But what do we want to happen while it's true? So we want to print the balance. So we'll print a balance of their airtime. Balance, and then we'll put our airtime. Right? So now basically the person or the airtime, it will loop in there as many times. Unfortunately, with the while loop, it never stops, right? So if you had to run this now, it was gonna run and run and run and never stop and just continue running. Why is that? Because airtime will always be greater than 0. So we need to make it that it needs to get to a point where it has to stop. How can we do that? We can now say, okay, every time you run this, just change to say airtime. We want to make airtime -1. You could do airtime minus 10 rand. Let's make it 10 rand actually. So now what we're saying is, when you run this loop of this while loop, it's going to say while it's true. It's going to say, okay, airtime is greater than, so it's going to say 50 rand is greater than 0. Yes. Then it's going to print, then it's going to come down and say airtime is now equal to airtime minus 10. So airtime minus 10 will make airtime become 40. Then it comes back to the while and say, is this still true? Yes, it is. Come back. Now 40 minus 10 will go down. Then say 30 minus 10 until we get to 10 minus 10 is 0. Then it comes back. Is 0 greater than 0? No. False, meaning stop the code. Now we're done. That's how this while loop will work. So let's run it. And you can see it ran balance 50 rand, balance 40, balance 30, balance 20, balance 10. And it ended it there, because the moment now we didn't say greater or equal to 0, we just said greater than 0. So it wouldn't have print balance 0, because the moment we now less than 0, which would be 0, it becomes false and the while loop stops. So another thing is you could have a break. So this is your emergency stop button. Like I said, while loop will go on forever unless you've got a condition that will allow it to stop, right? So there's something called the break, which is our emergency stop button, right? So we can write some code to just say while true. So instead of us adding a condition, we're just saying while true, meaning it will always be true, right? So this is just so we can show you how you can at least stop the code if it will be continuing forever, right? So say while true, and then we'll ask for an answer. So this will be an input for the user. And then we'll just say type exit to stop. Okay, so basically telling the user that, hey, once you type exit, this code will stop. Then what we'll do is we'll add an if statement. So now we need to keep checking, because what if the user says no or doesn't type anything? So we need to check that the user actually types the word exit so that we can exit. So we'll check if answer is equal to exit. Remember, double equals is for comparison, 1 equals is for assigning. So I put double equals because I want to compare answer and exit. If they are true, which will make the entire comparison true, which will mean if true, which is gonna allow it to go into the code. Then all you put is you write break, and then if not, we can just print what they typed. You typed answer. F string, don't forget an F string, especially when you're working with variables in your strings. So we're just telling the user that, okay, while it's true, so Python's going to say, okay, while it's true, which is true, there's no condition, I need to continue going. So it's going to continue looping forever. But now it's going to ask the user, do you want to press exit? Yes or no? It's not going to, if they type whatever, it's not going to get into the if answer. It's going to just jump onto line number 21 and then print out the answer that they typed. Then continue until it gets that word exit. It will go on forever. So let's run it. Let's just clear here. And we run it. So we are seeing all the other code. Let's just comment that out just so we can only see what we're working on. And run it again. Okay, run it. So it says type exit to stop. I'll just say no. It's going to continue and tell me I typed exit. I'll say keep saying no. No. So it will never stop it will continue going until I say exit, then it stops. So this loop was going to continue until. So even if I didn't ask for an input, this was going to go on forever and ever and ever and ever and just not stop. So that's your while loops. The while loops go forever and they go until that condition is met, which is the same as a for loop, but yeah, while loop is more different. You need to use a break. So let us just try and do something with everything together, and then we should have a better understanding. All right, let's have a data budget checker. So we'll comment that out, and then we'll come here. We'll add prices. So now this is basically everything in one, just so we can have F strings, the lists, everything we've tried to do today in one thing to see how everything can work together. So we'll add prices and we'll give this the dictionary. So we'll say how much is 1 gig. Okay, you can just format it. We'll say 1 gig is 90 Rand. Then we can say 500 megabytes. It's like 30 Rand, I don't know, 55 Rand. And then we'll just say 100 megabytes, 29 Rand. Okay, so we've got our prices, our dictionary of prices, right? Then we can add another variable for budget. And this will have it as a float, because remember, we're working with numbers. We want to keep the entire decimal points as well. So we're going to ask for the user to input their data budget. So we can just say enter enter your data budget, then they'll enter their data budget. Then let's print. Now we want to print what they can afford, right? So these are all the prices. This is the budget they have. We want to now check based on the prices and based on what the user has, what can this user afford to actually buy? So we'll print F string, and this F string we say with your budget, with the budget, and then we'll just say budget. And then we can have it to make sure that it's the float is two decimal points. So we'll just do budget :2f, right? And then we say you can afford. So this will return how much the user can afford. So let's run it. Say I can afford 87 Rand 90 cents. Okay, so I made this is a float. Sorry. Okay, so we changed it because we're already on the float, so it will return as the decimal. As you can see there, it returned 90.0. So you can leave that as is. There's no need to put your decimal points there. So with the budget of 90 Rand, you can afford something, right? So obviously we didn't add what they can afford. So we need to check what this person can afford, right? So let's add a new line. So we just want to space it out nicely. So to add a new line, you can do /n, so that when you run the code, it will put a new line so that there's spaces in between. So let me just clear the terminal and run it again. Say 90. Right, so as you can see, it added a new line right here. So we've got enter your budget, and then it's added a new line with 90 Rand you can afford. But obviously we didn't calculate yet what this person can afford, right? So for us to do that, we can do a for loop, right? So for the bundle in the prices, so again, remember about key value, key value, key value. So key value, key value, key value. So we're checking for each key in the prices in the dictionary. We want to check which one the user can afford, right? So we'll say for bundle in prices, and then we can say if their budget is greater or equal to prices, and then we'll just add the bundle. So what it's going to do now, right? Remember key value? So bundle is now the value, or yeah, the index we're iterating in the dictionary with. So we've got bundle, which will now go into prices dictionary, and then bundle becomes 1 gig will become bundle, 500 megabytes will become bundle, 100 megabytes will become bundle. So we are now accessing bundle in prices. Hence, we put prices bundle because that value will be shared because we are looping in prices. So it's going to loop for each key, and that key will be replaced in the bundle there. So where you see prices bundle, the key will be there. So we want to put if the budget is greater or equal to the prices of the bundle, basically the price of that bundle, then we can print if string, we'll just say bundle of R, then the prices, and we put that specific bundle there, right? So now we're going to just say that, okay, the bundle, we could add that bundle as well, just so the user can see which bundle they can see. So we can just say bundle, and then we add bundle. So bundle will basically be the key. So bundle would be 1 gig or 500 or 100 megabytes. So bundle 100 megabytes will be this many rands. So prices of that bundle. So bundle of, and then we could just say bundle, and then we move on to the else part. So if their budget, if the price of the bundle is not within their budget, we'll tell them that that bundle is not in the budget for this month. So we can just print with the F statement, and then we say bundle of bundle of bundle, and then we'll add the price of that bundle, which is R, and then we do prices dot bundle, sorry, prices index of bundle, and then that will tell us not for this month. So now what this code does, it goes into the dictionary bundle, and then in that dictionary bundle we'll check if the budget you set and the price of that bundle is greater, then we know that these bundles are part of your budget. If not, then these bundles are not part of your budget. So let's clear and run it so we can see it in action. So we'll say our budget is 90 again. So now it tells us with 90 Rand, you can afford the bundle of 1 gig, which is 90 Rand. You can afford the bundle of 500 megabytes, which is 55 Rand, and you can afford the bundle of 100 megabytes, which is 29 Rand. But let's say our budget was 30 Rand. So it tells us that with 30 Rand, we can, with the bundle of 1 gig, we can't afford it for this month. 55 Rand, we also can't afford it this month, but we can afford the one of 29 Rand because that is within our budget. If everything is not within our budget, then we can't afford anything. So if we had 10 Rand for our budget, none of these for the month we can afford. So that's an easy way for you to see how we worked from everything we did from Unit 1 to Unit 6 for you to understand the concepts and the basic parts of Python. Okay, so now that you've finished your Unit 1 to 6 and all of that is done, now we get into the summative assessments. Summative assessment is very important. You really need to do your summative assessment so that you are part of the top 50,000 people which will move on to the UJ Business School course, which will definitely be so awesome, and you're definitely going to learn a lot more. So you want to make sure you actually do your best with the summative assessments because you definitely want to be part of that top 50,000 people that will get into the course. So try your best, study hard, actually get the summative assessment as something very important, set some time apart, and actually work on it. Everyone else that does not make it into the USJ Business School course, there will be something exciting with Accenture to have the learning, learning to earning, learning to earning, yes.
That was nice the way you said it. There's something really exciting.
Yeah.
It's the Accenture learning to earning.
Yes.
3, 2, 1.
For everyone else that actually does not make it into the UJ Business School, there's actually something exciting, which is the Accenture Learning to Earning platform with a lot of useful information which will help set you up for the future. So please make sure you don't feel discouraged. If you don't make it, there's still something for you. We are looking at you, you know. So thank you for everyone. If you,
That was good.
Yeah.
So we'll start with, so thank you everyone.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining.
I will see you again in
Yes.
a few weeks' time on the UJ
Bus-
course to
yeah.
talk about app development and coding.
Okay.